My name is Irene, and in this video, we're gonna see how we can use SketchUp scenes to showcase different design options within our 3D model. So let's get to it. So at this point of your 3D modeling journey, if your 3D models are supposed to be intended for actual commercial purposes, that means that you are showing them either to a boss or a client for them to approve a design, you may have already encountered the fact that very rarely are you going to build a 3D model, show it to your boss or client, and then they're gonna look at it and be like, yes, this is fantastic, thank you very much, give you a check and move on with their lives. That's not how it really works. The bulk of the time that you spend 3D modeling isn't going to be building the model itself. It's going to be revising the model. It's going to be making changes. And one of the complications of these kind of changes is that sometimes, whether it's your client or your boss, they're not going to know exactly what is it that they want. And thus, they are going to ask you for multiple options. So for example, they might say something like, I really like this kitchen, but can I see different finish options? Or they might look, for example, the living room here and be like, can I see a completely different layout, right? So the way that I've seen most people tackle this in SketchUp in particular is that they will actually build multiple versions of the model. So they have version 1, and then next to it there's version 2, and next to it version 3. And then each of those versions basically houses the different design options that they want to explore. And technically speaking, there's nothing wrong with this method if you are working with a very small space or with a simple model. But the bigger and more complex your model gets, the more things that there are, the more inefficient this method is going to be, because you're going to have multiple duplicates of the same information, which is going to make your model heavier and slower. Also, this method can have the added issue that if there is a change that you want to see throughout all of those options, let's say that, for example, we're changing the furniture finishes, but then I want to see the same chair in all of them, but it's a different chair, then I'm going to have to copy and paste that chair in all of those versions. So although it is not inherently wrong, it is not the most efficient way to explore design options within SketchUp. The best way to explore design options within SketchUp is by combining tags and scenes, where tags are going to allow me to manage what information is visible and invisible, and my perspective is going to allow me to quickly switch between them. Now, the most important thing to understand about this is that you will have to duplicate some geometry, because changes to geometry are not something that can be saved within your scenes. So you cannot, for example, say like the material of the island is going to be this in this scene, and then I want that to change. Like the change itself cannot happen between scenes. So we have to duplicate geometry anytime that we want to see multiple options. So let's see how it would work. So what I need to have here is, as I already set, my scenes, and I also want to have my tags. So I'm going to start by making duplicates of the geometry that I want to have multiple, let's say, material versions. So let's say that, for example, for this kitchen here, my client wants to have this version where it's the island is wood and these cabinets are white. And then let's say that they want to have another version where the island is just a solid color. So what I like to do to make my life a little bit easier is to create my copy outside of the model. I usually like, when I'm creating things, initially I like to create them, if possible, outside of the model, just so I don't have to fight around the geometry. So I'm going to place this guy, let's say 20 feet. I also like to work with round numbers, so that way I can move it exactly the same distance back. And this is the part where you're going to have to be careful, because basically what we want to do is we want to have two models of the island. One where the color of the cabinets remains wood, and another one where it's just going to be a solid color. But if we have been working with groups and components, you have to be careful that you are not going to override the original if it's a component. So I can come here to my entity info, and this is going to allow me to very quickly see if I'm working with groups or components. This is a group, so I can just go in here, and if I pick this guy is a component. So I have to select, I think these two, yeah, these two are the same component. You can see, because the name doesn't change, if you select a component that is not a part of that type, so to speak, you are going to see that, say, it gives you multiple names. So these two are the same, and they're probably related to these guys over here. And you can double test that, because if you go click, there you go. See how these guys become highlighted? So that's the kind of stuff that you want to pay attention to. So I'm going to say make unique. And then let's see, are these are groups, perfect. This is a group, perfect. What about you? You are a component, so I'm going to, oh wait, these are components, make unique. And then what about you? You are components, so make unique as well. What about you guys? You guys seem components as well. So make unique, and then this guy here, yeah, this is a group, so nothing to worry about. Okay, so let's start applying materials. So I'm gonna come to my solid colors, and let's go with a very boring color. I'm not really interested here in exploring the design trends currently. So let's say, I don't know, let's say that we're gonna go with a green, and I'm gonna start painting, okay? Now, remember that also how you apply the material may vary depending on if the material was applied directly to the faces within the group or component, or if they were applied to the component itself. So the fact that painting these doors isn't changing it, it's telling me that the material applied to these doors was applied directly to the face of the doors, to their raw geometry. So that's okay, not a problem. We're going to go inside this cabinet, and now you're going to notice that because I used make unique, this side and this side are still connected, but they are disconnected from the original, so I don't have to worry about messing that guy up. That being said, if you look at the entity info, these guys are components. So if I double click in them, they reconnect to the originals. So again, this is one of those things that you have to be careful when you're working with components within components within components. Just because you made unique the overall component does not mean that the subcomponents within it are going to automatically disconnect as well. So I'm going to make unique again, and now you can see, there you go. See how that guy doesn't change, and then this guy doesn't change. Everything is awesome. And now what I can actually do is I can go to find my default material. I need to make a new video on material, specifically a material browser, because with the 2025 and going forward, this user interface has changed a lot. So there's that. Okay, so there you go. I actually hate this screen with a passion, so you'll have to forgive me while I quickly fix it. Yeah, something a little bit more desaturated. There you go. I can live with that green. Okay, so we have island 1 and we have island 2. Now we need to create tags, because what we're going to do is we're going to use our tags to manage who is visible when. So I'm going to create 2 tags here. One is going to be 3D kitchen island. You can be as descriptive as you want. I'm just going to call it kitchen option 1. And I'm going to create another one that is going to be 3D kitchen option 2. There you go. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to assign one of these tags to each of my islands. So this guy here is going to be option 1, and this guy here is going to be option 2. Now, just to show you the versatility of this, because this is changes in the materials, but you can literally change anything. So what I want to show you here is that you can literally have a second set of furniture. So this guy here, this entire selection is my living room furniture. Now, let's say that my client wants to have 2 options for the living room. One where it's this like 3-seater sofa and the 2 armchairs and this chair here and blah, 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 what we see here. And let's say that they want to have another option that is just like an L-shaped sofa or something like that. So we're going to have changes to the actual geometry. Now, one thing that I like to do in these cases is separate my geometry, and by that I mean that not everyone needs to be sacrificed to the altar of like different options, only the things that will change. So for example, let's say that the client is really happy with the rug, let's say that they're very happy with like the stuff that is here in my like bookcase and my fireplace. They just want to change the sofa and these chairs here. So not everyone has to change. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go inside this, I can't remember if it's a group or component, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to fetch the things that are going to have to change. So if I'm going between this guy to an L shape, then the sofa is definitely going to go away. These floor lamp may have to be in a different position. Doesn't necessarily have to go away. These armchairs definitely have to go away. And then let's say that the coffee table remains. Like, we're not concerned about that guy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove these guys from this component here. And you can do that with Control X, aka cut. So I'm going to cut and I'm going to exit, and I'm going to go here and I'm going to go paste in place. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to convert these guys into their own group or component. So I'm going to go group in this case, and just for the time being, to make it easier for me to work with it, I'm going to also move these guys to the side, also 20 feet. And now I can go on and place my new layout. I'm just going to speed up these process because there's nothing new here. Okay, so this is going to be my option 2. I don't quite love it, but like it gets the job done. So what I can do here is, for example, let's say that after putting this new sofa, I still also wanted to have this lamp, but then this lamp is going to be in an entirely different position. So even though though it is the same geometry, I can't just turn it on and off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a copy of it. I can even use paste in place if I want to, but then I'm going to move this guy to whatever position will better work with this furniture arrangement. And you're going to notice that it's a slightly bit off, especially if we compare. See, this guy is a little bit further in, this guy is a little bit further back. So you can have the same piece of furniture. If it's just going to change position, it should still be copied. So I'm going to select these guys, make them into a group, and now I'm going to do exactly the same thing that I did with my kitchen. I have my option 1 and I have my option 2. So I'm going to go 3D living, living option 1 and 3D living option 2. Okay. And same as before, I'm going to assign my 1 and 2. So let's say this is going to be my living room option 1, and this is going to be my living room option 2. And now this is the part that is going to be a little bit confusing. I'm going to move these two guys back to an overimposed position. So for example, here you can see very much the overlap between my original living room and my new proposed living room. And in the case of my island here, it almost looks like there's nothing there because basically the original one is hiding the copy. So now here's where things are going to get interesting because I'm going to start setting up my scenes. Now, this is one reason why I usually like to set up my geometry first before I set up my scenes. When you create your scenes, the scenes by default assume that all things are visible, and that can be a little bit annoying. Like with the newer version of Sketchup, there are ways that you can quickly apply those changes that you make to your tags through all of your scenes. So for example, you can select multiple scenes, right click, and then you can say that you want to apply tags to those scenes. So that would be whatever tags you have currently here. And we're going to see how that works in a second. So, okay, there you go. So let's say that we want to go back to the original perspective, and I don't want to mess with these. I want this to remain as like my perspective that I show to the client. Now, even though I cannot see it, I'm going to make sure that I turn off my kitchen here. And again, this is what I was talking about. So if we go, for example, to my floor plan now, you're going to see that my floor plan is showing my 2 options here and so on and so forth. So let's say that my option 1 is the one that I really want the client to go with. So what I can do here is I can start by turning off the options that I don't want to see. These are my tags. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on my first scene, click on my last scene holding shift, and then what I can do is right click and say apply tag to scene. So what that is going to do is that whatever the current tags on and off are will be applied to all of these scenes. And now you're going to see that if I go to my floor plan, I can only see option 1. And then same thing is going to happen with my animation. They are just going to show the one living room. So this is very handy because usually even if we are managing multiple design options, we have our favorite. We have the one that we want to show. So the client says yes to. So you want to make sure that you can quickly apply your tags to multiple scenes. Now, let's create our option scenes. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to leave my original perspective and I'm just going to create an entirely new one that is going to be managing my design options. So I'm going to create a new scene and then I'm going to use my arrow keys to move it down. If you want a refresher on creating and editing scenes, you can go back to the introductory video. But here what I'm going to do is that I'm going to say that this is my island finish wood, right? And what I can do here, so this is the interesting thing, you can turn on and off your layers before or after you create your scene. It doesn't matter. So what I'm going to say is that in this one, I want design option to be the one that is visible. And again, once you have made your changes, you can just update your scene. And here's showing me all of the things that are being updated. That's fine. And all I have to do now is switch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off option 1 and I'm going to turn on option 2. And now when I create my new scene, this scene is going to have a different set of tags turned on and off. So I'm going to go island, finish, paint, right? And the best thing about this is the fact that because I created my second option scene from my first option, there is no camera change. The only thing that changes is the things that you turned on and off. So you're going to see that it's almost like magical, like, ooh, you click and it just changes. So this is super important. You want to make sure that your camera doesn't move, because if your camera moves, then there's too many things changing. It can sometimes be hard for the viewer to understand what is the change that you want them to focus on. Instead, if your camera position is exactly the same and you're looking exactly at the same things, the only things that change will stand out much more. So there you have it. Now we're going to do exactly the same thing with our living room. All I need to do is set up my camera so we can look at our design options. So let's see how much I can push back before it kicks me out. I don't need to go that much more further back. Let's say a 2-point parallel. Oh no, 2-point parallel projection. There you go. Let me zoom out a bit. There you go. So now we're going to be able to see our design options. So I'm going to, once again, you can see that option 1 is turned on by default, and I'm going to create my scene. I'm going to move it all the way to the bottom, and this is going to be living room layout 1, and then I am going to come here and switch them. So I can say, okay, now this is the option that is on, and I'm going to just create a new scene that is going to be my, what was the name? Living room layout 2. And there you have it. So once again, because the camera position is the same, the only things that change are the things that you are proposing to be different. So you can see, even the rest of the furniture, you can see that it remains the same. But look what's happening here with the floor lamp. Because the floor lamp has to be in a different position, you can actually see that change in the position. And the nice thing about this is that once again, once you set up your tags, if you really have a project where basically everything in every room is going to change, you can basically create a duplicate of all of your scenes just with the different tags on and off. But with that, we have reached the end of this video. I hope you find it helpful. If you have any questions, by all means, feel free to add them in the comments. Also, feel free to like, share, subscribe, all of the engagement things, so YouTube notices me. But otherwise, thank you very much for joining in. Thank you very much for sticking through, and I will see you in the next one. Have a good one. Bye!